Welcome to Writer's Digest Presents. Hosted by the editors of Writer's Digest, this monthly podcast features conversations with writing and publishing experts whose insights will help ignite your creative vision, hone your skills, build your platform, and get your work out into the world.
Hello writers, I'm Michael Woodson, and welcome to Writer's Digest Presents. And this month, we are starting a quasi-series of sort of editor one-on-ones on this podcast, where I sit down with another editor from Writer's Digest, and we just kind of talk about whatever we're interested in at the time. We would love for all of you to get to know us a little bit better, what we like to read, what we like to write, and along the way, hopefully offering some writing advice, reading requirements from us, and then also just some publishing news and thoughts we have about anything going on within the world of publishing. And today I'm sitting down with Writer's Digest's managing editor, Moriah Richard, and we really talk about all of it. Primarily, we talk about this concept of performing a reading audit that really can help you expand your reading life. And in doing so, it really, really, really helps inform the writing you want to do, the writing you don't want to do, all of it. So without further ado, Writer's Digest presents Moriah Richard. Moriah Richard, hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing fine. This will come out in February, and here in Cincinnati, we're like maybe a day and some change away from what is expected to be an incredibly rough winter storm.
Yep.
Are you getting any of that?
So this is the funny thing down here. So I'm in Maryland.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, we're going to get 8 to 10 inches, which like to put it in perspective for you, where my parents are, where I grew up, they're expecting 24 inches.
Oh my gosh.
So,
24 inches?
Yes.
That's 2 feet.
Yep. Overnight. So like that's what I grew up in. So I'm like, oh, 8 to 10 inches. That's like nothing.
I mean, well, literally it isn't for you.
The grocery stores are
Bonkers.
bare. Like everyone is like panicking. And I'm like, guys,
it's
not
fine.
that serious.
Yeah. I feel really bad for people who are living in like warmer climate states that are totally unprepared.
Yep.
I saw this video of this woman that was like, she was just dripping all of her faucets, and she was like, is this all I do? Like, I guess this is all I do. And people were like, no, like, go get food, go, like, because they are really in trouble, I think. But
yeah, and that's like I think the biggest concern that people are having in our area is that the snow is going to bring like power failures. And that has never been a problem for like me as long as I've lived here. But people get like, they get so panicked, but like they don't know how to drive in the rain here either. So I'm like, okay, I guess I will go and try and scrounge up some groceries at the grocery store.
You maybe should
hunker down, but it's more difficult for me to like take it
super seriously. Totally. Yes. But any excuse to hunker down is like the world I love to live in. And so I'm like nervous about it, and also like excited to like have no plans. The point is to stay home and stay safe. And I've told you this. My reading goal this year is to read more of longer books.
Yes.
And not even like epic necessarily, but just epic in like page count, because I have all of these books that I just keep putting off reading because I don't know, they intimidate me, and I have this like sense of wasting time because I'm not getting as much reading done. And so I set an intentional goal at the end of last year that this year, regardless of how much I read, the majority of what I want to read, I want to be books that are like 500 pages or more. And so I just finished The Bee's Sting by Paul Murray. I just started The Covenant of Water, which is like 700 and something pages. And I'm like having a blast, and I can't wait to hunker down and like try to get a real big chunk out of it.
The dopamine of seeing the pages.
Oh, literally. We were just talking about that in my book club. Yes. Yeah. So, but anyway, I thought that may be an interesting way to get us into today's topic, which is reading audits. And this is something you approached me with, and something you've been kind of practicing yourself, if you want to give our listeners some information about it.
Yeah, so I first came across the idea at the Associated Writers Press, AWP's in-person conference in 2021. So the talk, and my brain is Swiss cheese, so like I'll never remember who said this at the time, but it was a panel that was more geared for educators and like creative writing staff. And they suggested, do a reading audit of your syllabus. What are the identities of the people that you are suggesting? Are they overwhelmingly in one, umbrella, under one umbrella or another? So I have been tracking the books that I read since 2020. I never really did before that, but for some reason that was the year.
Oh, I wonder why. What else were we doing in 2020?
Watching Tiger King. But I did a formal audit, and I saw I was like overwhelmingly reading like straight white dudes. And I was like, okay, let's change that. So every year since then, I've been doing a reading audit just to see kind of like what the holes are in my reading. But last year, instead of doing like a reading audit about the authors, I did it about the genre.
Yeah, love.
So I guess this was at the end of 2024. I was like, what is one genre that I've read zero of in like the last few years? And it was sci-fi. And so I thought about it, and I was like, I watch a lot of sci-fi shows. I grew up on Star Trek. I love watching it. So why don't I read it? And then my brain was like, oh, you don't like to read sci-fi. So I went to a local indie bookstore here. I'll never remember them. So it's not like local to me. I had to like drive to go see them. But they're in Savage Mills, Maryland.
Okay.
But I just like walked up, like never been in the store before, walked up to the poor man behind the register, and I was like, so I'm under the impression I don't like to read sci-fi. I need recommendations for sci-fi. And he was like all about it. He was like,
that's
yes.
indie bookstores for you. Yeah.
So he gave me a really, really good starting point. I bought a bunch of books from him that day. And then like all last year, all I did was read sci-fi. Wow. And like as both a reader and a writer, super like invigorating and helpful for me. So then when I looked over the books from 2025, the only poetry that I read was specifically for Writer's Digest. So that's what I'm doing this year.
Nice. Oh, wonderful.
I'm focusing on poets and poetry.
Oh, have you talked to Robert about that at all?
Not yet.
Yeah,
but it's on my list.
Yeah. We just started. We have a couple weeks into, or at the time of recording this. Well, yeah. So a couple weeks into the year, you've got time. Yeah. I love this. I think this is such a good idea for readers and writers, because it can reveal so much about what you like, and it could also help justify what you don't like. And that sounds negative, but I actually think that's just as important to like recognize the things that like you're not interested in personally writing from a craft point of view in a constructive way. And it also helps you form like what your baseline interest is, and then from that baseline scope out different genres. Because something you've talked to me about is well, first of all, I love that you make the distinction between you love watching sci-fi, you've grown up watching sci-fi, but never loved reading it. And that is such a true thing for me. I've learned is that, and I want like our listeners to recognize like that's probably so common. Like the things I love to watch aren't necessarily going to translate to the things I love to read. And that's because like they are different art forms, they're different mediums, they are requesting different things of you as an audience member.
Absolutely.
So that's okay. Like nothing's wrong with you that you love watching sci-fi, but you are having a hard time sinking into a science fiction novel. But there absolutely is the science fiction novel out there for you. Figure out what your baseline interest is, and then you can find that genre. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but for you, you found cozy sci-fi in this exploration, and you're like, that I found it. That's what I like.
Yeah. So the helpful gentleman at the bookstore was like, well, what else do you like to read?
Perfect.
So I gave like general vibes and tropes. I was like, across the board, like I like found family. I like a bit of romance. I like things to feel cozy. And I was like, I can do like long epics, or I could do, small town romance. Like it really just depends. So he started me off with cozy sci-fi, which I didn't know existed.
Totally.
And immediately I was hooked. But then, so Becky Chambers was one of the authors I started with. Once I was like really into her cozy stuff, I was like, okay, let me see what else she's got going on. And that led me into like space operas and, like all of these things that I really was convinced like, oh, these aren't for me. But I think there's always an author out there who's like writing a story the way that you want to internalize it. And that's, I don't know if this happens to you, but like, I find it really difficult working in this industry and then having like people in my life be like, oh, is that a good book?
Oh,
I'm like, are you asking me if it is a good book or if I enjoyed it? Because those are like two separate questions.
That's actually like, that's a complicated, skill that is learned like in this job, in this industry, is the distinction between what is good and what is my personal preference. And sometimes, often those intersect, and sometimes they don't. And and I appreciate it in equal measure. I like being able to recognize when something is good that isn't for me, but I know who it's for, and when something is good that I love, and something that isn't good that I love. Like that is totally legitimate as well. What is I mean, just as hard as when someone asks me, like, if I say I loved a book, they ask me what it's about. I'm like, well, I don't know what it's about. Like, I just know that I loved it. Why are you asking me
exactly
details?
Yep.
Yeah.
Or like, I remember when the third Emily Wilde book came out, I had friends who were like, oh my God, like, we just read it. Let's talk to you about it. I was like, girl, I read that over a year ago.
Oh my gosh. See, this is my problem. It's my pick next for book club, and I picked Monstrilio because I was reading it and loving it. And so I was like, okay, I want to pick this for book club, but my pick is, we're not meeting for like maybe 3 more weeks. And I read it in December, and I'm like, I don't even remember the characters' names, but I know I liked it a lot. I'm so sorry, you guys.
Well, and that's something that I saw. It actually came across like my TikTok feed because like book talk is like slowly encroaching, especially like now with all the heated rivalry stuff.
Yes.
They're like, oh
yeah, of course,
you will like this book talk content.
Yeah.
Gotcha. That's what it feels like. I was like, no, they found me. But anyway, so I had somebody. Because like at the end of the year or at the beginning of, a new year, you see a lot of content creators talking about like, oh, I read 100 and whatever books last year. And, and this specific creator who I regret not writing her account down, but she was like, I got into that, like, gotta read more, gotta, check things off the list. And she's like, it sucked the joy of reading out for me. And so when you said you were tackling these like heftier books, that was exciting to me because like I think it's okay to take your time
totally
with a manuscript, and like even if you like read a book in 24 hours, say, and then like there can be a period of time where you're like, nothing's hitting, I don't want to read, because like you're still in the feeling
completely
of the book that you just finished. And like it doesn't have to be like, I gotta read, I always say I'm gonna read 52 books a year. I don't know why. That's just the number that feels good in my brain.
Yeah.
But like I didn't read, and I don't count books that we read for work.
Right.
So like I read, I think, like 48 last year.
Yeah.
And, like, I don't feel any type of way about that.
Totally.
You know? Like, didn't meet the 52, but really enjoyed the books I read.
You read 48 books. Yes. I also think that, like, of course, there's nothing wrong with numerical goals. And it makes a ton of sense. It works for most people. And sometimes it works for me. Just lately in my life, numerical-based, like, reading resolutions has done the opposite. Like, I just feel the pressure so immensely that it slows me down, and then I'm focusing so much on reading, not at all on writing, and picking books that are specifically geared toward getting me closer to that numerical goal instead of the books that I am actually vibing with wanting to read. Right. I also love that you mentioned this idea of, like, reading a book in 24 hours and then you're not ready to read something else too quickly. Like, of course not. Like, especially if you read a book that quickly, chances are it's because you're loving it. And it's like running a race. You have to, like, after a race, you need to rest. like when you read a book that quickly, your brain needs a minute. Like, you need time before you're ready to jump into something else.
Yep. And I think, was it Netflix who kind of popularized the show hole?
I don't know.
What they call it. There was like a commercial or something where they were like, oh, like when you binge watch a show and then, like, you're like, I can't watch anything else. I'm in a show hole.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And yeah. I always think about that in terms of reading, because sometimes I need to, like, I'll read a book. I did this with Heated Rivalry, actually. So I read Heated Rivalry in, like, 24 hours. And then I kept going back to certain scenes. And kind of, I think, speaking of books that are like, is it a good book or, you know, I do think it's a good book. But for me, it was a tricky romance to read because, like, I'm somebody who, on the page, I really like a lot of, like, exposition and, like, I really wanted to see, like, Ilya as team captain, you know, in the locker room giving a speech or, like, stuff like that wasn't necessarily on the page.
Yeah.
So I had to kind of go back and, like, build some of that.
Totally.
Because it was there enough that I'm like, okay, I see where this could be. And maybe that's the curse of the editor.
Totally. Are you ever reading something and you see something in a book that you're like, oh, that was an editor's note? Like, they added that because I get that all the time. And it's all like, I don't know if it's true, but I feel that way.
There was a book, I was in a book club quite a long time ago. And I was the only, like, publishing professional in the book club. And, like, we come to the meeting and we're, like, talking about it and everything. I'm like, yeah, I really like this book, but I was surprised by, like, how many grammatical mistakes there were. And everybody was like, what?
It's like, oh, it's actually all I could see.
Yeah, it's like, I really enjoyed the book, but, like, you know, I'm thinking about the editor and, like, the process and, like, all of these things. And they're like, that's not what we're talking about today.
We're not in class, Maya.
So, yeah, like, I'm going back to talking about Heated Rivalry. Like, I needed some time with that particular book because I was sort of, like, I loved it so much. I loved what was on the page, but, like, I needed to kind of fill in some gaps for my own self. So I went back and like, just kind of skimmed it, thought about it in my head.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting thinking about, like, reading audits too. Talking about sort of being in like a show hole or like, I can't figure out what to read next. I think, like, structuring your reading around a reading audit helps get rid of that anxiety, because it gives you, like, a goal that is, like, accessible and totally broad at the same time, because so like, you know, the sky's the limit with what you could choose, and the idea kind of is that this is new territory, so you can't go into it thinking too hard. Like, and I'm thinking in the sense of, like, you're already choosing to do something that's out of your comfort zone, so why not just go for it? Don't worry so much about if it sounds like something you're particularly interested in. in the same way that you would be more, I don't know, choosy with the thing that you like. Mm-hmm. Did you find that to be true? Like, as you did a reading audit, were you feeling less like anxiety around choosing your next read?
I don't know, like, I don't know if I've ever kind of had anxiety around my next read, just because my TBR is like so hefty, which is like the delight and the curse of
doing any of this.
yeah. And also just like being a lifetime reader and writer, always coming into contact with books that you're like, that's going on the list.
When I was in high school, sorry, I will let you answer a question, but when I was in high school, when I was really getting into reading, I was at a Borders with my friend, and it hit me how many books there were. Like, and I was like, oh, this is actually really making me anxious. Like, how do you even begin to like make a dent in reading when there's so much out there? And I said to my friend, who was an incredibly big reader, like I got really into reading because of her, I was like, does this ever stress you out, like seeing how many books there are to read and not enough time? And she was like, no. Like, she was like, it just tells me like, wow, there's a lot of bad books out there that I don't have to read. And I was like, oh, okay, I could frame this however I want. Like, I don't have to feel anxiety about what I'm going to read next.
And it is funny, like, I think part of why I never, like, I just read so fast when I was younger. Like, this is not the brain that I was reading a book a day with. Like, let's be honest.
This brain is not a lot of what it used to be.
But like I would just devour like anything. Like books my friends were reading. My mom, she was always like a Stephen King, Dean Koontz. I'll never remember. Is it Sue Grafton? Like all those kinds of books. So like always picking things off her shelves. And like just always kind of on to the next thing, not in a bad way, not in like a like consumption over content way, but just like, the feeling of like diving into a new world. Like I was always like, let's friggin' go. I'm ready. But I think it changed the way that I think about my TBR, though, doing this audit, where sort of things like I had realized that I was reading very few, and just to kind of preface this, like when I talk about like writers with like disabilities or like queer writers, like I'm talking about people who are open about those things, because of course like we could be reading queer literature that from a seemingly straight person and not
none of our business.
Exactly. So when I talk about these audits and finding these identities, I'm finding people who are like very open about these aspects of their identities with their audience. But like I was like, okay, I don't read a lot of fiction that has like disability representation on the page. I don't think, and this was interesting, I was like, I don't think I read a lot of like disabled writers' work. But then in my research, I was like, oh, quite a lot of these authors are actually like very open that they do have disabilities. And I just like, I'm not in their business.
Yes. Oh, gosh.
But I was like, okay, I really want to read more disability representation. Let me find like books that people who have these disabilities seem to think is like a really positive representation or like a really important representation. And in doing so, like I kind of filled a gap in my brain that now when I like am just at a bookstore, I'm like, oh, like that kind of phenomenon, like once you see or hear something, then like all of a sudden it's almost everywhere. And so it's kind of like that, where like
it's like when you buy a car, suddenly you see that car everywhere.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Or like very unfortunately for me, it's become 6, 7. Oh,
why'd you say that?
I don't have a middle schooler or a teenager.
You're telling me I have a dog.
It's everywhere right now, right?
Yes.
And so like it's kind of that where, you know, once I kind of fill in that gap, then it's just sort of like
the glass is shattered. You see it everywhere.
Yeah. And
in a good
way.
In
a good way. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's less about like navigating anxiety and more about like becoming aware of things that and like finding media and stuff that I never would have found otherwise.
Totally.
There is a book specifically. I talk about this book like all the time. I feel like it like altered my brain chemistry. It's called Disfigured by Amanda. I'm gonna butcher her last name. I think it's Leduc. Leduc, I think is how it's spelled. I apologize if that's incorrect. Again, my brain is Swiss cheese. But she does a full like dive into disability representation in popular media, specifically as it relates to like fairy tales and like the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
It's nonfiction.
Yes.
Her book is nonfiction.
Well, it is nonfiction. It's like half this kind of like academic deep dive and half her recounting her own personal experience with disability and like how consuming certain media made her internalize things about herself. So it's kind of like half a memoir and half a literary deep dive. Yeah. So beautifully done. The audiobook is also super great. And like as somebody who like is really into the MCU and like was always kind of interested in like I always had questions, right? Like why are we doing it that way? Or like that seems like not great. But having somebody from that community like sit there and like dissect it as somebody who also enjoys the content. Was like phenomenal. Would never have come across that book probably if I had not been audit. Seeking. Yep, exactly.
I love that. Well, and so how, if, two-parter. When you're choosing your audit for the year, let's say, how do you, is that something that is purely like a vibe you're getting or a feeling that you're getting? Because for you said, you know, it was science fiction. This year it's poetry. And is that because there's something happening inside you that you're like, okay, I want to read more science fiction? Or is it truly looking at the past and seeing that is a hole in your reading life?
So it is interesting. I'm a visual learner. So like I will take all of my reading data and like make graphs so that I can see visually what's going on. The sci-fi was like, I was shocked because I was like, I watch so much sci-fi. Totally.
Yes. And you and I are people who consume a lot of different, like we read a lot, we watch a lot of movies. So like I can understand your brain being like, this can't be true. I'm inundated with sci-fi.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I'm like, how can that be real?
Yes.
And then I ended up going back through data from the last few years, and I was like, oh, it's like super real. This isn't like I had like a bad year for sci-fi. Totally. And so that's how I got started with that. For poetry, a little bit different. Like as we were coming to a close, I'm thinking about like a close of 2025. I'm thinking about the fact that like this year, 2025, this past year, I published more on my own than I have since 2018. You know, I really made it a goal. I'm going to put stuff out there, just keep sending submissions, get stuff published. Not for WD, not for my full-time job. And I succeeded. Nice. But most of those things were things I had written years ago. I wrote for the February Flash Fiction Challenge and then like nothing else.
Which we're in the middle of right now, by the way. If you are listening, go to writersdigest.com. Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, if I want to like why am I not writing? Big question. because I don't feel confident in my writing.
Oof.
Every time I sit down to write, it's literally like pulling teeth. It's so painful.
Yeah.
But it's also something that like I am driven to do and possessed by.
Yes,
like I can't not
want.
do it.
Totally.
And so I was like, okay, how do I get back to the joy that I felt when I used to write before my MFA program?
Yeah.
And I really was like, I need to be a student again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, maybe it's just I'm so rusty. I'm so unconfident. Like, to rediscover the joy, I want to get back to basics. And one of the things that when I was in my creative writing program in my undergrad, I took a lot of poetry classes. I'm like, I am not a good poet. I enjoy writing poetry, but it's like, it's not something that comes naturally
innate,
to me.
Totally.
But I remember I for one advanced poetry class, we had to do like a semester long study of something and do like a 20-page essay about it at the end of the semester. And I chose color words and how they affect imagery in Mark Doty's work. And that study fundamentally changed the way that I write.
Wow.
And that the way that I describe things, I think for the better. And like that was one thing that people always noted on my work in my MFA program was my like use of description and my use of color. I'm like, okay, I got that from poetry.
Nice.
So I was like, I haven't read poetry really intensely since leaving my programs because it's not something I write a lot. So I was like, okay, I am going to this year in my like going back to my student days kind of. I'm going to take classes. I'm going to get back to writing fan fiction, my roots. And I'm going to study poetry. And I'm very fortunate. One of my dearest friends got her MFA in poetry. She's a phenomenal poet. And I was like texting her because we hang out once a month. We do like an all day hang. Nice. And I was like, hey, I'm going to like study poetry. And she was like, I'm going to bring you an entire stack of books.
Oh my gosh, amazing.
So I've got my reading for quite a while.
Oh, nice.
And that's sort of, so I think it changes year to year based on where I am as a reader, but also as a writer.
Totally. Well, and they also sounds like they feed one another. I love that you're saying this because it is, for our writer listeners, like, it is not simply a tool that you're using to broaden your reading life. It is also informing your writing. And I think that is one of the best things we can, which is something that is endlessly told to us in terms of writing advice, is to read outside of your preferred genre. But this is like taking it a step further of being like, not just reading outside of your genre, but like find books within the genre you are convinced you don't like, and you're going to learn something from it. Even if it's not something you don't like. Obviously you're saying you love poetry, but like be a student again, right? Like it has like a domino effect on your creative life, I think.
And it's like when I do these audits, it's not like I think thinking about like going back to school or like giving yourself a task can feel like you're kind of taking joy out of it. Yeah. Like I'm not like I wasn't sitting there with the sci-fi books.
Totally.
Like just from my editor brain being like, oh, this is what I like, or like,
absolutely.
But as
it
you're
reveals
reading,
itself.
Yeah, and you're like really enjoying it. I'm sure all of us, readers and writers alike, can be like, when you're in a scene and like you finish a really good scene and you're like, damn,
yes,
that was so good. And then you kind of go back and you're like, what made that so impactful for me? Or like, I mean, again, it's not that I didn't like Heated Rivalry, but
no,
like,
I know you did.
If I were writing this, like, what were the things that I would add? What were the things that I would remove? What do I think, from my kind of zone of genius over here? Like, where would I fluff or whatever? How would my descriptions be different? How would this conversation look?
Yeah.
I think all of that is like, it's super helpful and a way to just like keep that creative muscle working in your brain, even when you're like not sitting at your desk, like working on your project.
Totally. I hear what you're saying about the idea that like making it feel like school could take the joy out of it, but it's not. It's just like whatever that means for you. Like,
right.
You know what I mean? And yeah, like I was thinking when you approached me about this, I was thinking about in my world of reading, like how has this been true for me in terms of like trying to broaden, like if X is my preferred genre, like how do I know that, and what about it do I like the most, so that then I can try and expand my reading even within that genre, because I do think that people have what they like and they are afraid to experiment outside of that. You know, our time is like, we're not getting any more of it, you know, like, so I get it. But, like, I guess I would say like, okay, I mean, and we're friends, so you know this, but like my preferred genre is probably contemporary fiction, literary fiction. And then, so within that, like, there's a lot of conversation about, is there such a thing as literary romance? Is there such a thing as literary sci-fi? Yes. And I have read them and they are so good. So if you are someone who's like, what you like about literary fiction is that it's the language or that it's character driven, and you're not super attracted to a very intense plot, there is, I promise you, and I have some recommendations for later, there is the literary sci-fi that I know you would love. And so I think it is encouraging people to be less siloed into what they know they love, and delicately broadening their horizons, because then it will introduce them to like hardcore genre versions that they also really love. I mean, there's a book that I haven't read fantasy in a while, and years ago now, my friend Lily recommended this book to me, and it is a like capital F fantasy book, and I was just like, I'm not in the mood for that, I don't think. And I should have known, like, she's recommending it to me knowing the kind of reading I like to do, and it was, to this day, one of my favorite books I have ever read. And it is not a literary fiction novel pretending to be fantasy. It is a fantasy fiction novel. And my point just being like, don't be afraid to do an audit. Like, that doesn't mean you have to stop having a preference. I think it's just going to like reinforce your preference.
And like, I struggle on DNFing, which is like, I think a whole other conversation.
Okay, wait.
Maybe.
So you mean that you don't DNF?
I DNF'd one book last year.
I'm so bad at this too, Moriah. I can't DNF. And that's not me being proud. I want to DNF.
Yep. I'll be like suffering. Yeah. I'll be like, this is just not like, for me.
I'm like angry every morning that I'm opening this book. No one's making me do this.
But I'm like, but what if it's going to get better?
Totally. And sometimes that actually happens.
If I miss something? Yes. But I think that, so you were not on a meeting that we had, but it was me and Robert and Amy, and I think maybe you were on PTO that day.
Okay.
But like, I like held them hostage and like ranted about romanticy.
Oh, I did miss this. I've heard so much about it too.
So I think that they're tired of me like railing on this genre, but it is a great frustration of mine.
Totally.
Because like, I can't give up on it. I believe there is a romantasy out there for me. Where is it?
Maybe it's inside you.
Well, and at our conference last year, Jean Kwok was our keynote speaker, and she announced that she's doing. Right. I was like, there it is.
Is it out yet?
It's not out yet.
Okay.
I think it comes out in July of this year.
Okay, that's right.
I think. But it was like I love her work.
Totally, exactly.
She's a very literary writer. And I'm like, maybe I needed this literary fiction writer to write romantasy, and that's going to be the one.
And all the romantasy you've been reading and hating has led her to write that book. So thank you.
And I think like I just think, even if you're like, oh, I've read a bunch in that genre, like, it's just really not for me. Like, are you sure?
Yeah, totally.
check in with what, because genres all the time, they blend, they, they change. Romantasy started in the self-published indie space. Look how big it's gotten. Like trends change, themes change, and it's one of those funny things. Like, there are some books by Stephen Graham Jones that, like, you and Amy in particular, I'd be like, not for you.
Totally.
But I think you guys would really, really love The Buffalo Hunter. And it's just like one of those things. Like, yes, maybe like his entire body of work is like not something you would enjoy, but he has written a novel that I'm like, that is definitely something I think that you guys would love.
Yes. Yeah. And also, like, I am not interested in convincing someone to like something they just don't like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's not what this conversation is either. Like, personal preference is kind of like how we build libraries in the world, you know? And so at the end of this, if you do an audit and you see you aren't reading this genre, so you try to read this genre or this subgenre, and by the end of it, you're like, okay, yeah, I don't think I like this. That is also totally fine. But I promise you, as writers, like, knowing what you don't like is as important as knowing what you like, because then in your writing, you know what to avoid. You can start to study, like, what is it about this that you don't like, that you don't want to do in your own writing, and how to avoid that, and the kinds of agents to not reach out to, because they're not going to cover what you want to publish. So, like, ultimately, I just think broadening your reading horizons is good for you, even if at the end of it you still feel the same way about that genre.
And it might be helpful. So like how I started approaching sci-fi. Like, start from where you like.
Exactly.
Like, I love a story that has queer characters. I love a little bit of romance. I love it has to be like really solid, good world building. Like, there are certain things that like tick the boxes for me. But like say you want to start reading more romance, but like, like a personal ick for me is an accidental pregnancy. Do not request me to give you books that have that trope, because I'm not about it. There's been one book that I've read that I believe has done it successfully for me as a reader. Otherwise, like, not my thing. And I'm not going to make myself read that.
Totally.
Because, like, I don't have to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, free will.
Yeah, exactly.
For now.
So, like, it might even be helpful to be like, okay, I'm going to, like, jump into whatever genre feet first. But I know these are the things I like, and I know these are the, tropes or, like, if you have, like, specific triggers, like, if you have, I have a friend who is, like desperately, it's a true phobia, not just like, oh, I don't like spiders, but like,
that's how Josh is too.
Yep. Any kind of like bug or like similar insect, like cannot handle it.
Yeah.
So like a lot of horror then off the table, like there are just some things, like, you don't have to force yourself to read things that are like going to like traumatize you or like make you uncomfortable in the bad way.
Totally. Yes. Totally. Okay, well, so great. That leads me to, like, to finish this out, like, what do you have homework? Because I have some homework. Do you have any recommendations for our listeners? I have some recommendations for our listeners as well.
My biggest thing is, if you guys are not on Storygraph yet, storygraph.com or the app, go there, because something I really love about this platform is that they do community challenges, but like are based on genre. So if you're like, oh, I want to read more fantasy this year, you can join this group, and then every time somebody logs a book, you can go in and see what other people are reading and what they're saying about it. So it's a good way to like get recommendations, to track your own reading, and just have like some community support as you're like, especially if you're like really unfamiliar. Like, I'm so out of the loop when it comes to poets. So I turned to a friend who I was like, you know me, you know the things I like, give me recommendations. And it's sort of similar on the Storygraph platform.
Totally. That reminded me of something that the Mercantile Library here in Cincinnati does, and I'm sure other places do it too. they have this thing called the No Book Book Club, and you go, knowing you've just finished something or you're currently reading something. And so the idea is that you're meeting people, you're talking about books, this person's reading this person's reading that, and you just talk about it. And I love that. I think it's such a clever idea, and like really low stakes, social life stuff. Like, you don't have to feel like social anxiety because there's like this is why we're here, but we're not like playing a game, Yeah.
We're not going to do an icebreaker.
Yes. Yeah. And so, yeah, like reaching out to sort of reading communities is a great way to get just like even the pulse on something that it's not at all on your radar. Okay. So I do have too many possible book recommendations. This could be for you. This could be for our listeners. And like I said, my baseline is generally contemporary fiction and literary fiction. And these books that I have are from like a craft perspective within that genre, but then story-wise, like spans so many different genres. So if you are interested in dipping your toe into science fiction, but you like literary fiction, this book called In Ascension by Martin McInnes, I believe is how you say his name. So as I said before, don't ask me what it's about. I'm not going to be able to tell you. I don't remember anything other than I loved it. But I would say it's somewhere between the movies Interstellar and Contact. And if you love those movies, you will love this book. Another one that is, I'd say, literary sci-fi, and maybe a little bit more approachable because it's so beautifully written, but it's really economical in its storytelling, is Sea of Tranquility. A really, really good time travel story that is like flew through it. And I'm a very slow reader, not proudly, just can't imagine going any faster. Literary romance. A lot of people question if the book Normal People is a literary romance because it follows absolutely no rules that romance novels do, but it is a romance. Right. That one is a very challenging book emotionally, so I don't necessarily recommend that to everybody, although it's fantastic. What I do think is a good contemporary romance that is not necessarily a romance book is Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid.
Oh, nice.
And she writes a lot of, like, in this similar vein. So if you're, again, wanting something that is romantic, but maybe a little bit more surprising than, like, naturally romance is going to be because it follows certain tropes, like, right. I think she's a great resource for dipping your toe into that. Literary dystopian. This book called Severance by Ling Ma. It's about a pandemic, and that's all I'll say because it's wild and it's incredible. And I picked it for book club, and then in the midst of us reading it, COVID happened. And I was like, you guys, I'm so sorry. I did not mean to pick a pandemic book during our first pandemic. But if you're someone that pandemic triggers you, I totally get it. Cause I could not read books about pandemics forever. Yep. Something about reading this was so soothing to me because in the midst of what we were going through, I like suddenly knew what they were talking about. Like, I was like, oh yeah, I know what kind of mask that is. I know, like, I'm so hyper aware of what quarantining actually is. And like the pandemic that happens in this could literally never happen. And so it did make me feel like, okay, things could be, it was terrible. Do not ask me how I did. I did terribly during COVID, but, Amen. it could have been like so scary bad, which is what I'm grateful for fiction. Cause I'm just like, it reminded me of like, be grateful. And I believe you've read this one. If not, I know you've read more of this person's work, but if you're looking for like a literary historical fiction, James by Percival Everett, I think is an incredible pick. Yep. Anything by Percival Everett. Oh, amazing. Got it somewhere. Oh. That's a book where it's like everything you've heard about it is true. Like, believe the hype. Completely believe the hype. And there's a literary horror book. I don't know if I'd call it horror, but it's definitely like spooky ooky. It was Bunny by Mona Awad. We read that for book club, and it is very weird and unsettling. And I think if you're a reader like I am, by hearing all of these, I think you will recognize like, oh yeah, there's a lot of genre within the genre that I enjoy reading. And I think you can find that wherever you read.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I love that.
And you had mentioned this, but I want you to give you some time to like really recommend it, because I do think it's the one that really helped you like find your niche within sci-fi was Psalm for the Wild Built.
Yeah, so that is the one that I started with, and I think that one like kind of cracked open a lot of things for me, and especially like now I went into it being like, oh, this is like a religion book.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, and like that can be like, I'm like, keep an open mind. This is what the nice man at the bookstore told you to read. Relax. But like, it was actually just like so beautiful and hopeful and soothing in a lot of ways.
Especially now.
Yes. And like, I don't know if you have seen the third Knives Out movie.
Oh, we haven't talked about this. Yes, I did. We
saw
it.
But like the way that like the young like priest, it's Judd, right?
Again, you're asking too much.
It's either Judd or Jeb, but I can't remember. One of those. But like the way that he like is so like loving and selfless, and like it was a lot of those vibes.
Totally.
So like if like don't be scared off by the religious aspect of it. The world building is phenomenal. It's super cozy. It's super beautiful.
And short.
Super short. Like, I binge read it, and then fortunately I was reading it at a time that the second one was coming out, so I didn't have to wait super long between them. Second one is also super short. Devoured
perfect.
it.
Yeah, there you go.
But another book that I do want to recommend for, it's a sci-fi romance. It's called A Quantum Love Story by Mike Chen.
Oh, right.
It needs to be studied because this is a book where, like, it's so sweet and you're going through it. It's a time loop book. So it's two people who are trapped in a time loop together, strangers before this happens, falling in love.
Perfect.
But, like, every time you get comfortable, every time they get comfortable, there's a plot wrinkle. And, like, I call it a wrinkle because, like, it's not like a, oh, my God, this is so catastrophic. All of our plans have to change. It's like you're just shifting the story 1 degree. But, like, by the end of the book, you're like, how did we end up here?
Wow.
You don't feel the shifting happen, but it's, like, it's so emotional. It's so beautifully done. And, like, very, if you love a slow burn, you will love this book.
Yeah.
This book is for the slow burn girlies.
Okay. Girlies and gailies.
Yep.
That reminds me of a book, and I won't mention it. We'll talk about it afterwards. But that I'll say enough, and everyone will know what I'm talking about. A time travel love story that is very famous. That I read it when I was 18, maybe, and loved it. And then in revisiting as an adult, I'm like, so much of this is so problematic. I hate to be that woke friend, but like this is so problematic. So it's nice to hear there's another one out there that maybe doesn't feel that way.
It's so good.
Yeah.
And I was like did not know that sci-fi romance was a
thing. Totally.
It is a sci-fi book that has romance as its subgenre.
Yes.
And like that was really interesting.
Yes. Because I think that can like refresh when you're feeling like I don't know. When I read too much of one genre, I get kind of not like get tired of it, but the genre tires me out. And so when I read something else that has like I don't know, like just like feelings or certain things from another genre that I do like, it like reinvigorates me within that genre as well. So it's like if you need a break from the genre because it's starting to feel like redundant, finding these books that have the things in it that you like just will keep that in your brain and help you stay in love with that genre you ultimately love.
Absolutely.
But anyway, Moriah, thanks so much for chatting with me about this.
Of course. I always love talking to you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you next month.
Thanks for listening to Writer's Digest Presents. Visit us online at writersdigest.com and make sure to follow us on social media at Writer's Digest for daily updates on articles, online courses, live events, and more. See you next time.